Hello, everybody. Unfortunately, we hear this literally every day of the week in our local towns, in our cities, in every part of the country in Ireland, unfortunately. And years ago, there was trouble. There was obviously troubles in Northern Ireland. But it was never this bad. And many, even elderly people who grew up during the troubles, and even Cavan, for example, was just down the road, the troubles, bombings and killings in Northern Ireland. Even people are saying in the 70s and the 60s that they never feared for their lives on the streets of this country, going around the town, going to collect their pension, going to the shop even, just even going down the road for a walk. They're terrified. And that speaks volumes, especially when you hear elderly people who grew up during very hard times, especially in the border counties. It was terrible times back in the 70s and the early 60s. And to hear them saying that it's worse now, to feel less safe now than they did back then. They were more safer back then. And even when I was growing up, for example, I could go and play outside of where I was growing up, and nobody would go near you, nobody would touch you, nothing would happen to you. Nowadays, you couldn't let your child go out on the road and just play and go and play with the ball, or etc., play with the toys outside in the fresh air. Or you could leave your door open in your house. Years ago, when I was growing up, even the early 2000s, you could leave your front door open and go away down the field for a walk, or go up the road for a walk, and when you come back, everything be there the same. Nowadays, you can't even go a minute without leaving your door open, and the whole house and the door and everything will be gone. And it's sad to say, it really, really is sad to say, and especially because you see so many people online, and just not even online, even in Cavan, take for example here. In Cavan Town, I met so many people that I know that used to go to school with me, not even that. So many people I knew from this area, from my area where I live, they're afraid to go into the town. They're terrified to go into the town, especially we seen last week there was a person beaten up in the town, nearly killed in the town. We still don't have the information. The Gardaí won't release any information on that. So it's the lack of trust too in Garda Síochána. The Gardaí are defending people who are breaking the law in more or less in this country. And people are turning up without passports and we don't know who they are. It's the same in Cavan. There's so many people turning up out of the blue that we don't even know anything about them. We don't know where they're from. They would, and they're getting everything handed them. It's a madness. It's totally madness. But not even that. There's some of our own too, of our own citizens causing trouble, and they shouldn't be in society. They should be locked up for a long time. And it's the fact of the matter. It's so sad to say that so many young people are afraid to go out. And to be totally honest, I was in Dublin there, January gone by, and in fact, and to be told, I was afraid to walk the streets of Dublin. It's the same back in June last year. I was in Dublin. And I was afraid to walk around Dublin, the main city centre, not back alleyways I went to, but the main streets of Dublin, along the quays there where I was there, January. I was afraid to walk up from the bus hours to the convention centre, because you simply don't know, because there's some shady people hanging about around Dublin, and there's some shady people hanging around our local towns and stuff. And again, if they attacked you and you fought back, you'd be the one in trouble, because the justice system of this country is fucked altogether. And it's sad to say that the country's that way, and the people are afraid to walk the streets of our own capital city, where people fought for independence, and our city, and it's fair to say it's turned into a shithole, Dublin. And excuse my language, but we have to call it what it is. People are terrified to go near it. There's tourists getting beaten up, getting robbed every day in the minute, and our politicians won't do anything about it. And the justice system is fucking useless. And then there's people turning up we don't even know anything about, and they're getting, they're causing, a few people are causing trouble, not all of them, but some of them are causing trouble, along with their own crowd that should be in prison, as some of them. Some Irish citizens causing trouble, they shouldn't be out and about. But it's a sad state of affairs, it really, really is. And especially, I've seen videos, you've probably seen videos, there's a woman I follow on Twitter, she's afraid to go into a local St. Patrick's Day parade in her area. And that really tells up, and with people that are terrified even go to the local St. Patrick's Day parade because of trouble and stuff. And it really speaks volumes, even to Irish society. I know so many people too, personally. They used to go out a few years ago for on a Saturday night for a few hours for a drink or whatever. And so they're entitled to it. It's a free country. You're allowed to go off and have a drink, or go out and party on the Saturday night after a hard week at work. You're allowed to let your hair down a bit. And they're afraid to go out. They're terrified to go out. One person I know particularly had a bad incident with a taxi driver late one night. And, we could go forth and go on and on. We'd be here for hours if we went on about everything. But it's a sad state of affairs. It really, really is. Compared to Dublin used to be one of the safest cities in Europe. Now it's one of the most dangerous cities. It's a sad state of affairs. It really, really is a sad state of affairs. But we need to talk about it. Because at the moment the media are just whitewashing over it really pretty much. And just mention it here and there. They're not. We should be demanding as Irish citizens. we're entitled to be safe on our streets. Our children are entitled to walk to the shop without being harassed, about being kidnapped, or God only knows what else. Because this country nowadays, anything goes. And that's the unfortunate thing, anything goes. And the worst thing, if you fight back against somebody who's attacking you or trying to take your child, this is the worst thing about it is that you be worse, you be in the wrong, the justice system will come after you if you defend yourself. And that's the thing, I've seen many cases where people defended themselves and the justice system went after them instead of the people that were attacking them. It doesn't make much sense. But the only way to solve this and to make people feel safe is high police ability. But not even that too. A lot of people have lost trust in Garda Síochána O'Connell first of all too. And to be totally honest, I'm one of them. The Gardaí don't know how to do the job. They're too busy worrying about online, people misgendering somebody. That's the problem in this state too, along with all the other issues. Because the Gardaí are too busy worrying about online hate crime. Well, not even hate crime, but just people's thoughts, opinions. You imagine that they're too busy policing opinions than fighting the real crime, knife crimes. I was in the UK, the knife crime's gone mad, and they're too busy worrying about somebody that's criticising the local Labour council. that's what's happening in the United Kingdom, and it's happening here too, unfortunately. That the Gardaí are too busy worrying about thought crime, 1984 crime, than enforcing the real crime, murders and stabbings and stuff. Let's not worry about that. Let's worry about people thought crime. It's lunacy, but we need to talk about the society. We demand Irish people should be demanding Irish people that pay their taxes like myself. We should be demanding our children to be safe on our streets. Elderly people too, I feel for them. As I say, people in their 60s. And imagine in Cavan, and when there was bombings, since there was the bombing in Beltoba, there was a bombing in Clonus during the 70s. People were killed. And the people even now in Cavan are saying it was better back then. It felt safer back then than it did now. And when you hear that from people that are in their 80s, I know a man that's nearly 80, and to hear from him, it speaks volumes because there was trouble back then. He even knew people that were abducted and shot and killed by the IRA and by the unionist gangs and stuff. And he said it was safer back then, back in the 70s and the early 80s, than it was in modern Ireland. Like, when you hear that, and especially in the border counties, when you hear that, there's something very, very wrong somewhere. And it's the fact that we're not allowed to talk, we're not allowed to discuss it to a certain extent. Because this should be the main thing everywhere. And it just goes to show you that our country is becoming a hellhole. And it is becoming a hellhole. Both by the government's own decisions on what they're doing, in terms of the policing in this state. And it goes all back to one thing. It's the lack of trust in society. Years ago, people could trust their neighbours. Irish people always give people the benefit of the doubt. We meet people, I even do it a lot of times too, people that don't even know them and stuff, like if they ask for help and stuff like that. I remember a few times people wanted money for the trolley, the pull trolleys in supermarkets, and I always would give them a €2, to put in, stuff like that, because they wouldn't have the money, and I give them the benefit that they give it to them for the trolley or whatever. Or even one time somebody was lacking change and I paid for their stuff. Just because I never knew them, I never known them before, but I give them the benefit of the doubt and I give them a hand. That's what Irish people do. We're very generous enough people. We help people out when we do our best for people. But it's the fact that that's been taken advantage of a lot nowadays. Now kindness has been used against us, and it's sad to say, and especially because again years ago, even you could know your whole street basically, your whole village and town, everybody in your town. Nowadays nobody knows anybody. Simple as that, nobody knows anybody. As I say, that's the thing too, and it's lack of trust. And not even that, the Gardaí time and time again, the people that are supposed to keep us safe, have lost trust time and time again in Garda Síochána O'Connell and the justice system as a whole too. Because people that are breaking the law, there's people, literally every day of the week I see people up in court. There was one person the other day had 100 and something convictions. And how is he still on the streets of our country, 100 and something convictions? And he's only about 40. And he has 100 and something, so he might as well live in the prison at that stage. Because 100, imagine that, 100 and something convictions for different crimes, from armed robbery to burglary. The list is endless. It's endless. 100 and something, he's only about 40. Like, good God Almighty. But we need to start having the discussion about this, because it is truly sad to see that, and especially when you hear that in a border county, it's desperate to see. But the only way we do it is being very tough, because we can't be softy, because there's far too much softy in the state. Being very harsh is the only way to deal with it. Putting the fear of God into people, that if you do this, we will deal with you. Because that's the only way to do it. Because again, nobody fears the justice system, but they should feel, what's coming after when the time comes. But that's the I take anyway. I'm sure the majority of people would agree with me. But we could talk all day about things. But I'm sure the vast majority of people like myself, I openly say it, that I don't feel safe going around Dublin. And I will openly say some parts of Cavan I don't feel safe going near either. And that's very sad to see, especially because I grew up all my life in Cavan. It's a sad thing to say, and especially because, again, as I said, back in June last year, I went off to Finland, to Helsinki particularly, and it was very safe. I imagine I never felt unsafe on any street in Helsinki. I went around the whole city, never once felt unsafe. And I was on O'Connell Street in Dublin, and I felt very unsafe. I was on Grafton Street before I left, just before I went to the airport, and I felt very unsafe. In the middle of Dublin city centre, where Independence was far from O'Connell Street, I felt very unsafe, and that to me tells you all you need to know. A main street in the whole country that I felt very unsafe, along with many other people too. Because you can tell there's less people around O'Connell Street than there used to be. And that's because people don't feel safe. It's a sad thing to say, but it's the truth. And we shouldn't be naive with the truth. We should always say the truth out straight. Because the truth will set us free, and it's important to know that. But anyway, let me know what you think. Do you feel safe in your local town, your local village? I'm afraid to say the vast majority of people would say no, unfortunately. In rural villages in Ireland, in rural Ireland, a lot of people would say no, they don't feel safe. And it's a terrible thing to have to say. It really, really is. It's a terrible thing to have to say. But it needs to be said. Because the only way you're going to change something, or anything's going to change, if you speak out, if you speak your mind about it. That's the only way. That's the only way. Anyway, let me know what you think. Subscribe for more, and bye.